On the 23rd of October, there was a very subtle teaser posted in the episode of Forged in Aeternum episode 56, and when I realised what it was and what it meant, I think I actually fist punched the air. Yes, within the set of Forged in Aeternum was nestled a beautiful looking Xbox controller. New World is coming to console, and New World is getting controller support. The when is still up for debate, and we'll get into that, but seeing this made me think back to 2015 when another MMO that I love, Elder Scrolls Online, made their announcement for controller support ahead of an eventual console release, and it got me thinking, done well, this could really open the game up, not just to a new crowd, but to new heights of popularity, and with popularity of course come funds, and with funds come further development. The potential is endless, but done badly, this could go very, very, very wrong. Aside from aim assist, and we'll get into that in this video too, there's a very important part of controller support that I think most people don't really consider, but if it's overlooked, it can really make or break a game. That is controller UI and user experience. I know, UI is not the sexiest of topics, right? But stay with me for a few more seconds before you decide to click off, and I'll explain why this often overlooked by players topic is actually crucial to the success or failure of controller and eventual controller support for the game. Still here? Fantastic. Then let's get cracking. First, let me explain why controller UI is so damn important. Hands up those of you who find clicking through town storage to be a bit of a pain. How many of you have considered reworking that system or commented on how it can be improved? Hands up those of you who have commented either positively or negatively on the updated equip menu that came with the release of Rise of the Angry Earth. And finally, how many of you have commented or thought about what a game changer it was when gear sets were introduced with Season 1 at the beginning of the year? Grand. So, these examples, as I'm sure you've already figured out, are examples of UI experiences within the game, good or bad. The point I'm making here is that whether you've taken the time to think about it or not, the user interface and the resulting user experience have a direct impact on your experience of a game and your level of enjoyment. If it's too much, if it's inconvenient, if there's too much having to click through to get to what you want, then the overall user experience suffers, i.e., you enjoy the game less. This is the primary reason that Apple's iPhone quickly became top of the pack during the smartphone revolution. The first iPhone didn't do anything new at all, it wasn't even 3G. But what it did do, it did a lot better than its more advanced competitors. The user experience was buttery smooth because Apple put so much time and effort into making sure that it felt like driving a luxury sports car and less like driving some second-hand old banger that you've picked up at a second-hand garage. The importance in user experience translates directly to controller support in New World. The existing menus, overlay and navigation within the game are not built for controllers. They're built for the precision of a mouse and the dozens of buttons and variety that you get even with a basic keyboard. Neglect to do anything with the current menus and UI and just throw a controller on? It'll work, sure, but it's going to be janky as hell. It's going to put a lot of people off very, very quickly. For controller support and an eventual console release to work, we need a UI redesign built from the ground up with the limited buttons and the reduced precision of a controller in mind. And this is where we come back to Elder Scrolls Online. See, until 2015, I hadn't even considered these things myself. I just took it for granted that things just worked, and then my MMO at the time, Elder Scrolls Online, announced controller support for the PC game, and with it, a complete overhaul, a controller-friendly UI. The idea had honestly never occurred to me before, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Anyone can remap some buttons, but what about menus? Especially MMO menus, which are dense and usually several levels deep. How should you navigate those menus? A pointer like with a mouse? How fast should that pointer go? You want to be able to drag it to the button that you're looking to click. You don't want it flying off the screen, and you also don't want it going too slow. Do you want a controller to be using click and drag at all? What about snapping from button to button with a quick flick of the thumbstick? How about UI size? I mean, we all play keyboard and mouse, right? So most of us are never more than a foot, two at the most, away from the screen. We can see those small, beautiful details that the designers have included in game. But what about with a controller? If I'm playing with a controller, I'm reclining back in my chair. Or further still, I might be sat on the couch, trying to play the game from across my living room. We're going to need a bigger UI as well. And these are just menus and navigation. What about furniture placement? There are a lot of beautiful player houses in the game that have benefited not just from the love, care and attention of the player, but also the precise and tactile responses of a mouse and a keyboard. How is that going to work with a controller? Suddenly, all of these small, underappreciated and overlooked details start to make or break our experience in game. It can either be buttery smooth, like that of an iPhone, or a janky nightmare, like that of a Windows phone. Rest in peace. Now, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. There are people far smarter, more experienced, more exponentially skilled that have been thinking about these things at Amazon Game Studios easily for the past year, if not for a lot longer. But how much room are they being given to develop these things? How many resources have they got at their disposal? Knowing something is true and actually having the freedom to explore and enable them are often two very different things within a company. When the higher-ups want maximum returns and concrete deadlines, corners might have to be cut, much to the disdain of programmers and the designers. One of the worst phrases I've ever heard in my life is minimum viable product. But this is a phrase you're going to hear a lot in creative spaces, whether it be development, whether it be artistry. Does it work? Can it deliver the bare minimum? Not the best, the bare minimum. It's the bane of every creator. And I guess that's why I'm making this video. As a community, some of us want controller support and some of us don't. But for the health of the game, I'm sure we all want to see it do well. So when the announcement comes, whether it's next week or next month, keep an eye out and see what's said about controller compatibility. This isn't just an exercise in remapping some buttons. An addition like this should come with a whole software suite, menus, interactions, cursor snapping and more that make that beautiful little controller work well. If when the announcement comes there is no mention of these things, then alarm bells are going to be ringing for me at least. But I'm actually pretty comfortable and confident that AGS has this. I think they know what's going on and that we're going to see some detail about how controller is actually going to work with the game, with a reimagined suite of menus and interactions. One more thing I want to mention. Yes, it's a big one and it's going to make, I'm sure, many players unhappy, but we need to talk about aim assist. Yes, for controllers to work effectively in a PC first game of mouse level precision, we are going to require some form of aim assist. Regardless of feelings, and I know they're going to be strong either way, the only way a controller is going to be able to compete in PvE or PvP is with this often maligned tool. Thumbsticks just don't have the targeting capability of a mouse, and they never will. So in a PC game that gives you a choice, thumbsticks are always going to need a little bit of extra help. It's best to think of this as equity rather than equality. Thumbsticks are at a disadvantage. As such, they'll likely be given a little nudge to level the playing field a bit more. It's going to cause a few rage threads, that's almost certain, especially among the more passionate PvP players, but it's inevitable, and it exists in any game that gives you the choice between gamepad, keyboard and mouse. What's in question is how finely tuned the aim assist will be, and I'm sure that this is something AGS will look at when they release. Aim assist won't be release and that's it. It will be carefully monitored and it will be tuned up or down to try and get the best results for all players. So what about console release, Glaive? Well, console release is almost certainly coming. It's a huge market with very limited MMO choices, and it could fundamentally reverse the trajectory of New World. It turned Elder Scrolls Online into a success story, and I'm 100% sure that it will do the same for New World. But I believe we're going to see PC controller support before we hear about a console release. It just makes perfect sense. The controller experience is such a fundamental make or break component of console gaming that why take the risk to rush it out without testing it first? Instead, why not test and perfect controller within your existing platform while working to make console release as good as it can possibly be? And let's not forget client performance. My prediction remains controller support for PC in 2024 with a raft of engine optimizations and performance updates. Then, once it's fully baked and once it's ready, console release in 2025. Maybe end of 2024 at the earliest, but who knows, right? There's every chance I could be wrong. And that's it for today. That's the video. As always, likes, subscribes, comments, they're all good. They're all very helpful with the algorithm, so please consider leaving them. I also stream on Twitch Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, so you're more than welcome to come and hang out. Hope you found the video interesting, and until next time, take care.